Welcome to our home.
So this is our humble abode, and tonight we had small group tonight, and instead of like recording a video just solo us, we thought about recording a video with our small group. We have couples, we have singles, people who have been married a long time, a short time, newlyweds, etc. And to get their advice on this topic of don't let the sun go down on your anger. So you're gonna hear it from them on how they're growing in their marriages and their relationships with friends, family, etc. on how to resolve conflict and handle it well.
Oh gosh.
No, it makes it worse when you're snoring because then you just get more furious and it's like, how are you asleep right now? Wake up.
Chill out, wake up perfectly fine the next day. Like, oh, hey,
You wake up like,
Doom! Death!
Well, what's funny is we'll wake up like, hey, good morning, how are you? And you guys look at us like,
what do you mean?
How are you?
I
can tell you
that
how I
was a
am.
jinx, Abel. That right there was able to ask what a jinx
have a
is.
good dream, that's what it is.
But on a real note, communication really is a huge thing. I mean,
Sure.
completely honest, vulnerable, uncomfortable communication.
But at the same time,
fine or not, no, I'm fine answer because
right.
like that's my guilty thing. I'll just be
Truthful,
like,
communicating,
yeah, I'm fine, and he's like, no, you're not, and he forces it out of me. So
yeah. That's really good.
Sometimes
because,
we
like,
need that.
Yeah, and for me, like, if Hannah's still asleep and we were fighting the night before, like, and she's still sleeping and I'm leaving for work, I'm like, silent night. Yes.
if it weren't for patience and grace, I mean, I wouldn't be here. I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. Regardless of like the emotion behind it, anxiety, anger, anything requires a lot of patience and grace and forgiveness.
Asking for forgiveness.
Yeah.
That's
the
also
hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
And then forgiving yourself. 'Cause,
Yes.
like, I feel like that can
Beat
bring
yourself up.
issues in marriages too. So if you
Yeah.
don't forgive yourself, then like it can cause the conversations to come back up and those emotions can be sparked up again. So forgiving yourself so that way it can be totally resolved.
we also have to make ourselves vulnerable, not just in apologizing, but also in saying, like, look, I'm not running at 100%. And that's
Yeah.
really tough to do
Oh,
because
yeah.
you have to put your ego aside and say, you know, if you got the flu or something, right? It's like, I want to do all these things for you, but I'm coughing up half a lung. And so,
Right.
and that gets very difficult because we set high standards for each other because we want to improve as couples and as a unit.
I think like to go off of that, like humbling yourself
Yeah.
and then not being afraid to get uncomfortable. Because
Yeah.
like, I mean, obviously they say you can be super comfortable with your spouse, which like you can, but I mean, even in just general relationships, but like in my marriage alone, there's been uncomfortable conversations
Yeah.
and vulnerability through those conversations and having to humble yourself and like you said, not being prideful and being like, look, I'm struggling and, you know, willing to own up to that and to be able to, so that way they can go and help you the way you need to. Like,
Right.
it's very difficult for me when Isaiah doesn't just know my needs right off the bat. I have to communicate with that to him and yeah.
I definitely think it takes a lot for us guys, especially, to say that we're not okay to our wives.
Yes.
Because we're sitting here like, we're fine, we're fine, you know, 4 knives sticking
And
out of
then
our back.
sometimes- yeah, and
Just
then
keep going,
sometimes-
it's fine.
Tis
But-
only a flesh wound.
Sometimes we can tell there's something wrong with you guys, and you
Oh,
guys
yeah.
get so stubborn when we're asking and
It's
asking.
like, go
and
away, I
asking.
don't want to talk to you right
Like,
now.
you refuse to tell us, and it's like, tell me!
Tell me what's wrong, you know.
Well, what's been interesting is I'm living in a 1-bedroom apartment, which is a very tight space, so we don't really have a separate room like to go to. And what I found is that if I just walk around the complex for 5 minutes sometimes and come back, like after the fight is settled, we've talked everything out, and I go, all right, I just need some time to process all this, go do my thing. I take the walk, I come back, I'm feeling fantastic. And it has nothing to do with the resolution between the two of us, because that's already occurred. It's more so in my own space, how I'm feeling with it. Am I happy with this? Does this need to continue? Have we settled things? Can the dust lay flat? And I think that's also a very important thing. So I think guys are a lot more sedentary into themselves, more so than they communicate that would be a need, you know.
And, you know, you always want your friends that have guy friends that they can call any time of the day just to talk to and talk stuff out. That's definitely something I've known we've both needed. This is my buddy right here.
Hey. Yeah. I've been on both ends of that call. I can confirm.
That's good to step away and not like hash it out when the emotions are fresh, because you can say things you don't mean.
And they're
But,
not
like,
left on that. Yeah.
I know, I don't know if everyone's like this women-wise or not, but there's times where, like, if I get super heated, I'll be like, no, like, I'm not done talking. I want to continue this conversation.
Yeah.
And Isaiah's like, no, like, I need to just, like, chill out, and so I don't say something I don't mean. And I'm like, fine, whatever. And I might be a brat about it, but then, like, we'll settle it down. Or there's on the flip side where there's times where, like, we'll both, like, step away. I'll give us our time, and then we come back, and I'll be like, yeah, I was a brat. I'm sorry. Or explain, you know, more so of the big picture of, like, you know, our emotions versus them, you know, having the conversation just purely based on those emotions, like, in the heat of it.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, and that's
allowing that space.
is crucial, because I can tell you from the guy's perspective, I have had those conversations where she said, "Oh, you think we're done?" And the elevator music just starts playing, baby. I'm just like, all right, you won't let me go into my actual hole, let me go into my emotional hole. I'm going to sit here, nod, and nothing will come of it, because at that point, it's kind of like, it's a weird analogy. You ever back a rabid animal into a corner? It doesn't end up pleasantly, but it's like, at the same time, we're loving and considerate. We don't want to, like, lash out at you. So I think a lot of times we just kind of go into, like, the happy place, so to speak. We just go, ugh.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's good to recognize that, and to give him that space, I think, is an incredible gift.
I mean, it's also the wordage you use too.
Yeah.
Instead of saying you,
Right.
point blame at them.
That's
Also-
something we often wind up arguing about, is just like the 100% blame. Like, you always, you never.
And on top of that, if you listen to one side, repeat back to them what you heard, that way they can convey what you've heard to them. Like what they said, you validate it, and then you go with your example. Instead of they fire off with something, you fire right back with something else.
Yeah.
It helps de-stress.
Yeah. It's, if you use you and I too much, there's no we there. And that's very important to keep in mind. And I honestly do struggle with that.
Everyone
I think
I
we all
make
do.
it very binary.
Yeah, we all struggle with that.
Yeah.
I feel like if you just say, like, you did this, you did that, that doesn't really, okay, like, what does that mean? But instead saying, well, it hurt my feelings that this happened, or when you did this, it did hurt my feelings, or something like that, then they can say, oh, I didn't mean to, or something.
Yeah.
Use I feel
I
statements
feel.
instead of, that's something I learned, I think, as a kid. Just in any relationship, not even just marriage, like, I feel. And, like, I'm trying to think. There was something else that I was going to say, but I can't seem to recall it. Maybe, it was that, like, again, in just any kind of relationship, friendship, you know, marriage, dating, mom and dad, it's like everyone wants to be heard, but nobody wants to listen.
Yeah.
And so, especially in the heat of things, like, you just want to be heard. So that's when you start raising your voice, because I think, you know, we raise our voice because we think we might be heard more. The louder our volume is, the more we'll be heard. But that's not the case, because you're just repeating the same thing and at a louder volume and ticking the other person off. So that's why you needed that time to step away, so that way you can listen and not, you know, talk over the other person, and truly, you know, hear what they have to say and understand it, versus just it going in one ear and out the other.
Right. Which is funny you mentioned, because I was thinking about how God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we don't always consider his sense of humor. I mean, come on, that's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.